Hi everyone. My name is Ariana Scalfo. I'm the host of the CHP podcast. I am the director of coaching at CHP, coach, whatever, but I'm also just huge fan of all things hybrid sports. And I went out to volunteer at the Hybricon Games a few weeks ago and managed to watch Phillip Muscarella win. So it was really cool. His performance was awesome. It was just really cool because I was involved in the scoring to see how consistent he was across the board with events that, considering your background, I think is CrossFit. You said there are some things that we would have assumed would have been out of his wheelhouse, but he smashed. So I'm excited to talk to you. Welcome. And if you have any sort of introduction you'd like to make for yourself as far as your background is concerned, or like what your coaching looks like, just to give our audience an idea of kind of who you are, and then we'll jump into how you ended up at Hybricon.
Absolutely. Sure. Thanks for
Welcome.
having me. Yeah, I love talking everything related to fitness as well. So my name is Phillip Muscarella, and been competing in CrossFit for the past 5 years as a hobby. As a profession, I'm a performance coach, personal trainer. I work with all different populations of people and athletes. So that's what I do for a living, and I just really like to push the boundaries of human limits and kind of see what my physical, like my max performance levels can be. So I'm always like trying new things and pushing myself. And currently I'm sitting in my home gym named Muskie's Kitchen. It's where I do a lot of my training. But yeah, I competitive athlete growing up my whole life. I played college and semi-professional soccer, and then once I retired, I moved into trying a few different things. What it really like caught my interest was CrossFit. So been doing that for the past 5 years. And like I said, like I like all things fitness, so I'm always down to try new things. And my buddy Hunter had this new competition and seemed cool, so I was like, I'm always down to give things a try.
That's awesome. I could tell from your attitude, like the whole weekend, you were just all smiles, even when things were like kind of nuts. You were just like, all right, cool, yeah.
Yeah, I try to be, and that's something honestly that I've worked on recently because um I have been the opposite of that and just been like super tense and nervous and like banging my head against the wall, like I have to perform. And actually Hunter is the one that actually gave me some advice about competition, like anxiety and stuff like that. And it's just like it's one of those things where I do this, and anybody who competes is lucky enough to be able to compete. Like we get to do it. We don't have to do it. So when I go in with that mentality of just being grateful to be there and being able to move my body how I want to move my body, it's just like it's just a better experience all around. So try and been working on that this past year or so to just kind of like enjoy the moments rather than stress about them.
I love that. And that's so Hunter too. Like, I remember he was just like, forget what he told me and why he told me. But he said it's not the same because I've never been super competitive, but it was sort of more of a like, never let your opponents see you frown. Like, if they're going to catch you making any face, make sure it's a smile, no matter what's going on in your head. And I remember that just super helped me at the Spartan Games because I was getting my ass whooped. I was doing
Yeah, I mean, he's
awful.
the ultimate competitor and he has a
Yeah,
lot of really good insight. So
yeah.
part it's part like your own battle within yourself, but like your competitors,
Don't
like
know.
learning about your competitors and like like not letting them know how what you're thinking or what's going on is a huge part of competition as well. So
Yeah,
if anybody knows, Hunter knows for sure.
for sure. Yeah, that's awesome. So huge athletic background, obviously huge interest in athletics. Um, when you heard about Hybricon from Hunter, the qualifiers were a little bit more straightforward. It was like the super total, the mile, and then that very CrossFitter workout with the thrusters and everything. Were you surprised when you came into the games themselves to see kind of all the the craziness that was happening, or was it just kind of like a fun challenge when you saw
No,
the
I
list?
looked at the events. I'm gonna go back a little bit. I actually competed at the flagship Battle Bunker or Hybricon
Oh, the
Games
first year.
first year.
Badass. Okay.
That was their first year doing it, and it was like a new thing. And like I said, like I'm always looking for new things to try and challenge myself and push myself and do things I'm not comfortable with. And the events were like the first event was like a ruck run into a 2K row into like an 800-meter run. And then the strength event, I talked mad smack to Hunter about this. The strength event was sandbag cleans, sandbag squats, and then you had to run with the sandbag. I was like, Hunter, you can't call it a strength event if there's running in it. So I talked shit to him quite a bit about that. And then the last one was the obstacle course. So it was
Yeah.
only three workouts and still really fun, new experience and stuff. But I felt like I felt like this competition was much more varied. And
Mhm.
so when it came to the workouts being released, I know Austin and Hunter got a little bit of slack from some of the community about the event, but I was just I was trying to remind them like this is your guys' thing, like
Mhm.
this is something new. You're trying to do something different. So why would you try and cater to something that's already out there or people that are already out there, like this is your own thing and you're creating it. And I think it's legit. Like it's varied. You have long distance, you have short distance, you have swimming, you have strength, you have one-on-one combat. I thought it was very well programmed, and the variety of it is kind of like what drew me to variety of fitness is what drew me into CrossFit to begin with, is just not doing the same thing over and over again. So the variety of it, I was all about it. And
Yeah.
the first day, which was a 10-mile run, half of it being in a ruck,
Yeah.
is a little bit like, oh, that's far. For me, I was like, that's far. And I didn't expect to like do very well in that, but it was just kind of like I knew that my fitness is well varied. So I knew I could do it all and I could be good at some of the one-on-one combat stuff. I pretty much knew that my day was day two.
Yeah. Yeah.
A little bit
I
more strength
understand that.
stuff, a little bit more varied combat stuff. So I mean, overall, I was really looking forward to it though. I thought it was a good test of fitness and different skills and stuff like that. So
Yeah, I really personally as well. I really liked the event list this year. Last year, the events were cool, but I feel like this year, just watching the leaderboard move around too and seeing how we had some specialists pop up, not specialists, they were still super well rounded, were doing super well, into day two, but you had your sort of like heavy hitter endurance guys topping the leaderboards in day one. And then day two, we watched all the people who were like not mid pack, but like up to mid pack move up to first place in day two. And I'm like, oh, those are the actual like well-rounded non-specialists like types of athletes. Cause it was, I don't know, it's just interesting to see the amount of people that managed to place first in something versus the amount of people that got like second, third, fourth, but super consistently and ended up getting like a podium spot. I really like the CrossFit method of scoring because I just think it
yeah, I mean,
levels the playing field in a really cool way.
it had to be varied
Yeah.
and find you had to be consistent to be able to do everything. You had to be
Yeah.
able to do everything. And I felt like in a competition where you're trying to test who's the fittest and be varied enough to test different implements and modalities, you had to be able to do everything. If you couldn't swim, you weren't going to win the competition.
Mhm.
If you like were scared of one-on-one combat, you weren't going to win. Like
Yeah.
you kind of had to be comfortable with all these different styles of things, and I
Mhm.
think that was like really a cool, like that's what I really like that side of it.
Same, same. I think the other thing that we see a lot in, especially in mixed modality sports, when people try to combine, you see the bias of the person writing the workouts. So you end up with like an endurance bias or a strength bias, and I feel like they really avoided that with this programming because you saw like certain events probably if you were a smaller, lighter athlete, it was going to be easier. But then the drag and like the actual combat events, if you were heavier, and then the log, if you were a heavier athlete, the tires, you got a bunch of opportunities to also show up and throw down. Um, just personally, I'm more strength oriented myself, and it was always super frustrating to see hybrid events sort of start to cater themselves towards the endurance and lighter athletes. And
I
as someone
agree.
who's on the taller side as a woman, I'm like, I weigh like 40 pounds more than everybody.
Yeah, you know,
So it's pretty cool.
I have to agree with you. And if you think about what hybrid, and it's like kind of like a newish term,
Mhm.
and these athletes that are considering them hybrid, like a lot of those competitions, whether it be, I don't know, the DECA or a Spartan
Fireworks.
race
Yeah.
or the Go Ruck, a lot of it is centered around running long distances or endurance. Like,
Mhm.
and so they're still very catered towards that sort of engine work and being able to maintain a long duration or like that style of fitness. And so like that was in this, but it wasn't the main indicator of the overall competition.
Yeah.
And I have to give it to Jake, who was in first pretty much the whole weekend. And
Dude, with like a broken ankle.
I considered him like, all right, he's the endurance guy. Like he's gonna have day one. He held his own on day two, big time.
Crushed it.
And be able to have that level of capacity endurance wise and still have the strength to move a 150-pound sandbag or a 150-pound log. I was, or like a 600 or 700-pound tire, whatever the last tire was. I was like, okay, well, I was like, damn,
This
I knew
kid,
that
right?
day
Like
two was going to be my time, and I thought day one was his, but he held his own for reals. And then it really came down to the skill.
yeah.
It really came down to the skill at the last workout of the obstacle course and being able to adapt on different implements that you maybe never done before. And so it was a good sort of like leveling playing field, I guess you can say, because you had to be endurance, you had to be strength, you also had to be skilled and be able to adapt, you know?
Mhm. Yeah.
So that was interesting to me is like if you can't adapt on the fly and do something that you've maybe never done before, then you gotta maybe not do things that you're always comfortable doing and get out of your comfort zone, you know?
Yeah. That was something I heard a lot from athletes after that weekend, which I really liked, was just they got exposed to a new sport or exposed to a weakness. Whether or not they want to work on it, that's up to them. But as someone who loves fitness, it's got to be super exciting to be like, oh, wow, I can get better at that. Or I could do more of this. Or I liked that. Or I hated it, but I don't want to lose again. So, like,
Yeah.
no,
Yeah, for me it's always like the whole point of, bettering or doing this sort of like lifestyle is like to better yourself and
mhm,
to figure out what your fullest potential is. And a lot of times when you're doing stuff on your own, you don't always do the stuff that you're bad at. So I have a coach that really programs the stuff that I'm not good at because it's I always like challenging myself. I keep bringing that up, but it's like doing things that you suck at
yeah.
and getting better at them and bettering yourself, and that's something that I really pride myself on. And I think I got like 15th in the ruck run, but I was looking at my splits and 5 miles being in a ruck and covering 10 miles of distance on a trail was I think I held a sub 7:45 mile pace average. And for me, that's good.
Yeah.
And there's nothing I can, like the guys that beat me, they just beat me. They have that capacity, but
Mhm.
able to hold between 7:30, 7:45 mile pace for 10 miles on a trail, half of it with a ruck. I was like, okay, well that was good for me, and that was the best that I could have done. And my
Yeah.
running has come a long ways, and I've been working on it. And it didn't really show on the leaderboard, but I was like, I was okay with that effort.
It's a personal, huge personal win. I mean, look, that was the coolest thing about watching you on that competition field was sort of you have a much more CrossFitter physique, which is it's just true. You just have lats, you have more muscle, and then seeing you next to like the more endurance guys who are just a little bit more lithe, they don't have as much muscle mass, and seeing you move as fast or nearly as fast was just really cool because it's like, all right, this guy's really been working on his aerobic capacity. He's really just been hammering it because there's just no way. Caleb too. Caleb impressed the hell out of me. Talk about a swinger. Like
Yeah,
the guy's huge.
huge. I mean,
Huge.
he dragged my ass out of the circle like no problem. I was like nothing I could do. He's this big body, big,
Yeah.
and that's kind of it's. I guess that's the term hybrid. That's where it's kind of that's where it comes. It's like how how big and strong you can be, but how fast can you still move?
Hmm.
And to be able to push those boundaries of, both sides of the wheel, or whatever, both sides of it, to be able to really push those boundaries and see what the real human capabilities are, is like, it's really cool thing to see, and more people pushing those boundaries
Yeah,
and working on them is really cool.
I love it. I think it's awesome. And I love that athletes like you and athletes that, like everyone that participated, when you throw yourself in a pool of athletes like that and allow yourself to be compared and to compete against other athletes, but on that just really weirdly varied playing field. You're competing against athletes that have never done CrossFit potentially, but they've done a bunch of other stuff that you're not good at. So it's just so cool to like put yourself in that varied group and see where you shake out. And like we were just saying, and then you find a weakness and you work on it. Or in your case, you win. But it's just I love that environment of just a bunch of different athletes and hearing them all be like, wow, that was amazing. I could never do that. But they had just won something that the other athlete couldn't have won. So it's just I just love the entire field.
Yeah, I think the Hybricon Games, I think it has some serious potential as far as growth.
Yeah.
And I really think that it could separate itself from, being something, like differentiating itself from something. You've seen that the High Rocks thing has
Mhm.
really blown up, and there's a ton of people doing High Rocks. I know not too long ago it wasn't very big. Um, but for me, variety is what I love. And the fact of the matter is, High Rocks is always going to be the same race every
Every time.
time.
Mhm.
You do a triathlon or you're into Ironmans, it's going to be the same race every time.
Yeah.
No, and the variety of it is not quite the same as far as skill goes to like CrossFit, because like they didn't have any Olympic lifts and they didn't have any high skill, or they didn't have any gymnastics. And they mentioned that no Olympic lifting and no gymnastics. And that's a whole entirely separator, because you know CrossFit is, people have their idea of what CrossFit is and what they do, but I mean they don't have a patent on exercises.
No.
Like exercises are exercise, and you can do them however you want and call it whatever you want. But I just think that Hybricon has this potential to differentiate itself from CrossFit, similar but different, because it's varied and you're doing different strength, endurance,
Yeah.
skill sort of things. It's not quite the endurance stuff like High Rocks or Spartan races, um, because it has more variety than those do. And I think it could be its entirely little separate little thing that could really grow. So it's cool to be a part of. It's definitely cool to win, and
Yeah.
Hunter being my buddy, and me growing to learn about Austin's background and getting closer with him, and seeing what they're all about. It's a cool situation to be a part of.
Yeah. That's awesome. I'm just stoked for you and I'm stoked for them. I think they just nailed it this year. Um and it's really hard to like you were saying, you get all this feedback from athletes and to filter through it and find the stuff that's actually going to make a difference and actually going to make the event better. Um and being open to that feedback is really hard. Like and I think they did a really 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 good job. So I'm stoked for them.
Yeah, I'm
So
looking
let's
forward to what they have planned for next year, because the
yeah.
growth in the first year and this year was exponential. So
Yeah. Yeah, really
I'm looking
cool.
forward to it.
I you know, we've been talking a lot about the event itself. Did you do any specific training before the event or before regionals, or did you just kind of stick with what you've been doing and just see where it placed you? Like, did you change anything? How does your normal
So
training look like?
the way the way that I worked for me is I ended up doing the open. The open workouts were kind of just like, I could have just thrown them into my normal training, and it wouldn't have messed with me too much. It was like you said, it was the mile run,
Yeah.
it was some lifting, and it was one workout. So it wasn't like anything crazy. So I figured just do them, put it out there. I figured I'd qualify and then see what happened after that. Regionals was actually like 2 weeks, like less than, I think it was like around 2 weekends after CrossFit semifinals.
Yeah.
And I mentioned earlier about, my main goal of the past 5 years is to make it to the CrossFit Games. That's really what I've been focused on, and really all in on CrossFit and doing what it takes for that. Um, so my mindset going into semifinals was, or all year, was kind of like, got to go to the CrossFit Games. Want to make the CrossFit Games. And just like almost like working for it, but almost
Mhm.
really like banging my head on a wall and like forcing it to happen rather than just willing it to happen, and just like accepting it is what it is, and it takes what it takes, and whether it happens or not doesn't really define who I am as an athlete or a person. And so by the time semifinals came around, I was burnt out, to say the least. And a couple things didn't go my way at semifinals, and it just wasn't. Things have to align. Like for me to win the Hybricon Games, things align for me, and things happen, and things may have fell in my favor, and that needs to happen for things to actually get accomplished. So that didn't happen for me at semifinals, and it took me a while to recover mentally from it. Um, I was pretty I was pretty bummed and burnt out from the whole year in the process. So by the time regionals of the Hybricon Games, I was just like, I was still mentally checked out. Like I wasn't in a mindset to perform. I just really was. I wasn't there. I wasn't ready. So I withdrew. I withdrew from semifinals, kind of last minute, and it was just like it wouldn't have worked for me. I wouldn't have performed well. Like I just was. I needed a break from it all. So I
Mhm.
withdrew from semifinals, and about 2 or 3 weeks before the actual Hybricon Games, I knew I was kind of on this list of backfill invites that people withdrew.
Yeah.
So I got an invite kind of last minute ish to go. And by that time I was mentally recovered. I was more mentally than physically, but I was recovered. I was training again, and I was like doing my normal programming. And um my normal programming is varied, like for CrossFit, and I feel like it prepared me well. I've been doing a ton of endurance stuff. Most people in the off season do strength stuff. I'm on a little bit different program of maintaining strength and working on endurance and just like building my aerobic capacity and my engine. And so it kind of set up for me to do well, I guess,
Yeah.
because I train that level of variety all the time. So it worked out for me where I got that last minute invite, and I was in shape enough. Hunter was asking me, he's like, "So, are you in shape?" I was like, "I think so.
Yeah.
Training." So
I hope
that's
so.
kind of my process for the Hybricon Games. Yeah,
That's rad. I'm glad you jumped in. I mean, clearly, but like, I'm glad that you were recovered mentally from that acute kind of burnout that comes from, like you were saying, like just holding your face against a grindstone for 5 years, 4 years. It just, you can get super burnt out, and the CrossFit season is really long. I mean, you have to kind of, between the open semifinals, like just there's just a lot of competitions that you have to stay peaked for all the time. I think being a CrossFit competitor is hard. It's a lot of work.
it is a long season. There's no real off season,
No.
honestly. As soon as the CrossFit Games end, qualifiers start doing all off season competitions,
Yeah.
and I kind of decided that I wasn't gonna do as many competitions, and kind of just really lock myself in my garage gym and just kind of just enjoy it. Like I never stopped enjoying the process of it, but not put so much emphasis on gotta go to this competition and gotta do this qualifier and do this and that. And the Hybricon Games is actually my first competition back since semifinals um, of the CrossFit season. And you mentioned my personality or my mentality into it. And since from the end of CrossFit semifinals to then, I really worked on my perspective and my mental shift. And it actually means more that you recognize that in me rather than winning the prize, because it's all about personal growth, and it's about you. That's why we do this. So the fact that I've been working on my mental strength and working on my outlook and my perspective on the whole situation of fitness, and my why, my purpose, and understanding that like we get to do this, we don't have to do this.
Yeah.
Um, that means a lot to me that it was portrayed that way and you could see that in me, because honestly, it's something that I've been working on a lot.
Well, you looked supernatural, so it's been working.
I
But
appreciate it. Thank you.
I'm really happy for you about that because I think, in coaching, you and I both encounter this, I'm sure, as an athlete, as a coach, as a friend of other athletes. It can get really easy to get sucked into this sort of performance pass fail mindset where, like you said, it always reflects back on your worth as a person rather than, like you said, about kind of how things just have to align for a win sometimes. Um, and just kind of recognizing that and just being happy with process wins and like your joy about your run, even though you didn't place, first, second, third, it like didn't matter because you knew that that was just a fantastic performance for you. I think that the ability to be aware of that in a 2-day competition, or some CrossFit ones are 4 days, that's huge. That's how you keep your head out of the toilet. That's that's how you keep yourself like enjoying the competition and still hitting it hard, and not kind of defeating yourself before you even get to the final event. So I just think that's fantastic, and I'm so happy that you're feeling it. 'Cause, it's one thing to talk about it, but it's really hard to do.
Yeah, and it is, and it's something like as coaches that when you work with athletes and even people generally, like it applies to all aspects of life, not just sport. It's just
Yeah,
like, the perspective and the thought process about what you're doing and understanding that like there's so much more to life and important things that you have that you like. When I lead with grace and I lead with being grateful for the things that I have rather than not with what I don't have, it sets up for more joy. It sets up for more passion. It gives me more motivation. Like it's like a snowball effect when you have that mindset and that perspective of like, this is something that I love doing. I
yeah,
do it because I love doing it. I get to push myself. So many people don't have the capability of doing what they want to do, and just leading with grace, that sort of has really benefited me, and it showed in this past competition, and just knowing that like life is so much more important than sport,
yeah,
and being able to have things like I have a beautiful wife, and we have a roof over, like these things that we take for granted every single day are really the things that matter. And this extracurricular stuff that we get to do doesn't really matter in the big scheme of things. So it's just that sort of mentality and that perspective that you know just enjoy what you're capable of doing, and not put so much pressure on yourself or compare yourself to other people. It's so easy to get caught up in that stuff.
yeah. We all do it. We all do it. But I think it's just knowing and noticing when you're doing it and being able to switch it off and be like, okay, wait, no,
Yeah.
no, I'm gonna go do something else now. But I think that's fantastic. It's really interesting because I think when you're sort of someone who's outside of sport or outside of the fitness world, can become really easy to like, I don't want to say hero worship because it's not what I mean, but it can become really easy to place really fit people on pedestals and like assume that they have something that you don't have, or assume that, I don't know, they're just better than you or something like that. I've had a lot of people be like, oh, well, so and so famous athlete, they're just better than me. They're more disciplined than me. They're more XYZ than me. And I'm like, I think they're just obsessed with sport way more than you are. Like, they've made their whole life about it, and you have other
Absolutely.
priorities and other hobbies that they don't have. So it's like, maybe you're just different people, and you went and got a degree and a job in XYZ, and they could never do your job. And they're over here putting all the time you put into that other thing into this niche sport. Like,
Absolutely.
it's just,
I can relate to that so much because my physique, people think that it just happens. Like, oh,
yeah,
I want to look like you. I'm like, all right, how much sleep did you get last night? And I don't even start with fitness.
Yeah.
And like
Yeah.
people think that it's the easy way out. Like people are always asking me like, what do you do? Like, what are you on? I'm just like, I'm on hard work. Like,
Yeah.
it's like so much more than it doesn't just happen overnight,
Yeah.
It's just like, so when people come up to me like, how did you, what do you do? I want to look like you. How much, how much sleep did you get last night? What'd you eat for breakfast? How much
Yeah.
water have you drinking?
What have you been
That's
doing the
what's,
last 10 years
yeah,
even,
where have you been? Like, what'd you do over the weekend?
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I mean, it's definitely, for me, it's been the journey is endless for me because it's just my part of my lifestyle, and I don't see like my goal of making the CrossFit Games the end all be all for me. It's not like I make the CrossFit Games or do well at the CrossFit Games and now my life is complete and I never do fitness ever again. It's like it's part of my lifestyle, So, and I think it's important to have little goals, attainable things that you can accomplish, and major goals that you want to work towards, and keep yourself on that path of discipline, because discipline and consistency outweighs motivation every single day of the week. You're not always motivated, and there's a lot of days where you don't want to do it. And what separates me from maybe someone else is when they don't want to do it, they don't do it, but I do.
Yeah. It's the little stuff. It's the little stuff. And I love what you said about the sort of mini goals, as I think a lot of us will make a big goal and we put it so far away from ourselves that it's so easy to be like, well, that marathon is 5 months away. It doesn't matter if I miss this run. Oh, well, that, event that I'm doing, that's 3 months away. It's all right if I skip this. And it snowballs. And I think having those mini goals of like, this is something I do a lot with my own clients where I'm like, what's a reasonable, realistic, bare minimum for you this week? Like, let's make that the target. And it's not just training, but like you said, it's sleep, it's getting enough food, it's, did you hang out with your family? Are you prioritizing the other things that allow you to stay in this sport with support and also like keep having fun? Like, are you still having fun? Are you still having fun? Like, some days aren't fun, but as long as you know that eventually you're going to have that fun day, you can keep doing it. But it's like, it's when you lose all joy that I'm like, guys, we got to take a big step back. Like, we got to take a big step back and just reapproach everything, because like, your paycheck doesn't hinge on this, the love of your partner doesn't hinge on this, the love of your children doesn't hinge on this. So like, what is making this so like, I don't know, so important to you that it's robbing you of your joy for this thing that you like? And that's sometimes a really hard conversation to have with people when you're like, is this the right goal?
Yeah. No, I can't agree more with that. I can't agree more with that. And I think when you do, like I said, when you do get what you have and those things and you realize that, it just sets yourself up for more success.
Yeah.
And I just really believe that I've been on both sides. I really have. I feel like I've been on both sides, on that side of it more often than not. And just like really getting caught in the moments and the pressure and
Yeah.
like the day to day, and just like so focused on this goal and how far away it seems, rather than just like take a breath, take a step back, enjoy the moments,
Yeah.
and enjoy the process of it. And that's really helped me, honestly. That really has helped me a lot. And I deal with that. eh, Going through it myself helps me deal with it as I coach. And anybody who coaches know that you're more than just a coach,
Yeah.
but you're like a therapist as well.
Yeah.
And whether it's general population or it's athletes, and everybody's going through it in different ways. And to be able to have been there, feel like you're gone through it, but still working on it, allows me to be a better coach, honestly.
Yeah, it's huge being able to, I think a lot of the time when you're a client working with a coach that you really respect, when that coach validates you and says, "Hey, I know exactly what you're going through. I go it through." For some people that can be like a wall falling. Like, "Oh, wait, I'm actually normal. I'm
Mhm.
not broken. I'm not less. They experience this too. Maybe I should stop beating myself up so much for it." maybe I should just, like you said, approach myself with a little bit more grace and a little bit more gratitude. And sometimes that makes such a difference for people. Like, can't tell you how many times I've just been like, hey, it's okay. You're not less of a person for not being excited about your workout today.
Yeah. Yeah.
Dude, it's normal.
And also performance, like your performance, like you said, how I performed at semifinal wasn't a reflection in the grand scheme of things. It didn't even matter. Like I think I heard something from a CrossFit Games champion say that when I die, no one's gonna remember that I won the CrossFit Games. Like my life is that's not my stamp on the world.
Yeah.
It might set you up to have more opportunities to make a difference in other ways, absolutely. But like sometimes your performance or where you stack up on a leaderboard or whether you reached your end all be all goal or not, like that doesn't define you or your life whatsoever. And a
Yeah.
lot of and me myself included was just like I was bringing that home with me. I was like, I didn't qualify, and I was like sad and depressed. But I'm just like, my wife's like, "What are you depressed about? Like, it doesn't even matter. Like,
Yeah.
we have each other. It's just like,
Yeah.
you're right. That's the sort of stuff that really is important in life, and really been just working on remembering those things because it's still easy to forget, especially in
Yeah.
the hours and the days and the stress of life and stuff. But
Oh,
you
yeah.
just always have to like really check yourself and work on your perspective, and that's something that I work on. That's something that I push my clients to work on, something that I push my family. Like I want to be surrounded with that, like
Yeah.
when there's people around you that are in that mindset that we've been talking about of whatever that mindset is, and just helping people get out of that because you want to be surrounded with people that have similar like perspectives as you, and it helps you overall. So
Yeah.
um, it spreads. It starts with yourself, and it started with me, and I try and grow that mindset and create a community of people that think similarly as me, and just help people. That's really why I do what I do. Is I love helping people, and I love pushing myself and my boundaries. So who knows what I'll do next?
That's kind of the fun part though, is you're just kind of like setting yourself up to do whatever the next thing is.
Yeah,
And
I
then,
think CrossFit has really prepared me for that, and the variety of CrossFit, I can I can do anything. I
mhm,
really can, and I feel like training that style of that way, it allows me to say, "Oh, I can do that." You
mhm,
know, I feel like someone asked me if they felt like I could do an Ironman right now, and I said I would probably need to train a little bit for a full Ironman, but I
yeah,
think I can do a half Ironman. I feel like I could go do a half Ironman right now and be able to complete it based off the training that I was doing.
yeah, which is just really cool. Like, um, I feel like CrossFitters are like the unsung leaders of hybrid because y'all have been doing strength and endurance and just super varied training on a variety of implements, a variety of modalities for years. And I just think it's like people who poo poo CrossFit, I'm always like, yeah, but have you ever competed against one? Like, the fucking crap to you. There's just an intensity that comes with practice in metcons and practice. Like I was actually pointing it out to several of my friends about at the Hybricon Games, like watching you and Emily Lubman when like a timer would beep and the timer would count down. It was like the people who did CrossFit would just amp. You guys would just turn it up. And then the people who didn't do CrossFit, they weren't used to that pressure. And it's not a reflection of them as athletes or people. It's just they weren't used to that kind of like immense pressure and they would slow down. They would wait for the timer to turn to beep. But
Mm,
like the people who did CrossFit, who I knew have a CrossFit background or at least a competitive timing based background, y'all would move until that timer beeped. Like, even if it killed you, there was no stopping until that beep was audible. And like, I think that kind of intensity and that kind of drive is definitely learned and practiced. And it's just so cool because you guys train in that environment and compete in that environment. And I think it just creates this really cool this really cool flavor of athlete. Um, the same type of athlete, I guess, that, you know, in a 10K races the last half mile. You know, like that similar kind of like insanity, but it was
Yeah,
just
and I
cool
don't
to
I,
see.
I think that for sure, like you say, CrossFit has trained me to be able to do a variety of different things. But at the same time, I don't want to limit myself as a CrossFit athlete.
Yeah,
I want to
yeah.
be able to qualify for the CrossFit Games and then still go be able to
And
run a marathon, you know,
yeah,
and like be
yeah,
able to compete in different sports. Like one of the athletes was telling me about the Go Rug Games where it was more military style based. They made them jump in cold water, roll in the sand, and then had them run an unspecified distance and didn't tell them how long they're going to run. And they ended up
yeah.
running 16 miles.
Very much selection. Yeah.
That sort of stuff is like super challenging. And some people think that me wanting to do stuff like that is like a little bit crazy, but it's just like CrossFit's prepared me to not just be a good CrossFit athlete, to be able to live a life where I could play with my niece and nephew, and I could go run a marathon, or maybe even complete a half Ironman without
Yeah.
training for one. It's just like I don't want to be defined as, oh, I'm a CrossFit athlete and you only do CrossFit. Like CrossFit, the whole definition of it is cross training. You know,
Yeah.
like doing a little of everything.
Amazing. Yeah. Yeah.
So I like to be able to do different things, and I like to do everything. That's why I got into it.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love that. I love that mentality and the way that you approach CrossFit as a sport, but then see the ways that it gives you the opportunity to pursue anything and everything else if you want to. Um,
Mhm.
I just think that's awesome. So as we wrap up, you know, looking towards the future, and you know, let's say they do the Hybricon Games next year, is it something that you feel like you're definitely going to do again? Um, or kind of like, what are you thinking for the next? You're going to do a half Ironman? Kind of sounds like you're thinking about it.
Well, my one of my good friends from college, um, we said this like 3 years ago now, but we said within the next 5 years we want to do an Ironman, and neither of
Okay.
us have really started training for it. But I don't think that's in the cards quite yet. It is
It's a
definitely
lot.
it's in the bucket list for the future. But right now, my main goal is to make it to the CrossFit Games. Um, I really want to. My wife and I mentioned earlier before we started, are wanting to start a family pretty soon. So I know that I'm gonna have to sacrifice some time and some things to be able to be there for them. And so I really feel like this is my last shot to go to the CrossFit Games. Um, there is a very high likelihood that I'll be going to the CrossFit Games on a team this year.
Oh,
Um,
cool.
it hasn't been completely solidified, but
Mhm.
part of my joy, I've been a team athlete my whole life. So like part of my joy comes with community and being able to experience things with people. And so just the thought of that is exciting to me, and be able to experience something that I'm more familiar with. And so I'm really looking forward to this year as far as CrossFit goes. And as far as the Hybricon Games, I'm for sure going to defend my title next year, especially with the fact that I think that there's so much potential in the sport,
Yeah.
being there from the beginning and being able to speak about it competently, about people that are wondering what it is. And I think just being on ground level with that, I think is an opportunity that I want to be there for, especially Hunter being a good friend of mine, and
Yeah.
be able to support him and do that. So my main focus is to be at the CrossFit Games in next August, and I feel like that'll prepare me to do other things.
Yeah.
And but definitely going to go back for the Hybricon Games and see what they have in store and defend the title.
That's awesome. I'm stoked for you. I'm so excited that it looks like you're going to be at the games regardless, one way or another, basically. Like that's kind of what it looks like to me. So I'm just stoked for you. Um, and yeah, I'm just actually I'm just really proud of you. Like it just sounds like you've been doing a ton of work on yourself and you've been working your butt off, obviously athletically for years, but your perspective is really cool. Much respect. Your clients are really lucky, and I'm just so excited for you and like the future, you and your wife, all of it. You definitely deserve it. So it's just really cool. It's been nice getting to chat with you. If people want to find you on Instagram and follow you and look at your training, look at your life, what's your Instagram handle? Because I'll also put it in the description.
So my Instagram handle is pmusky55. That's my Instagram handle. I'm based out of California. I train out of a facility called Sports Academy. I'm wearing the logo right here
Perfect.
in Thousand Oaks, California. And yeah, thank you for having me, and thank you for giving me love and appreciation. I appreciate that. And I have to say, I'm not the most how do I say, I'm not the most socially out there person on social media. Like, I'm not posting my workouts and posting every day and that sort of stuff. So I'm more of like kind of work on myself in silence, and people get to see that at the end rather
Mhm.
than bring everyone on the journey with me. My circle is pretty tight, but you can definitely find me on Instagram, pmusky55, and I enjoy meeting new people like you and talking with people, and I really like helping people. So if there's anything I could do for anyone to help out, I'd love to.
It's awesome. Thank you so much. Yeah,
Thank
thank
you.
you. That's why I love the whole hybrid space, hybrid whatever, like, just getting to meet people and grow this community has just been the coolest part, which is why I am like, I just insert myself. I'm like, I'll volunteer, I'll be there. I just want to be there. Everyone is so cool. So yeah, thank you so much. Um, I'll put all of your information in the caption so everyone can find you. And yeah, we'll just keep a lookout for your name.
Yeah, you'll see me. I'm sure you'll see me on some leaderboards somewhere. So
Baller. Perfect.
thank you
All
so
right.
much.